The morning light barely crept through the fogged windows of Clare Mitchell's Boston apartment, casting faint silhouettes on the hardwood floor. Outside, the trees had turned the shades of rust and fire that marked the American autumn. But inside, it was cold. The kind of cold that settled not on skin, but in marrow. Claire sat in silence, still wearing the combat boots she hadn't bothered to untie since her redeployment 2 days ago. The apartment was sparsely furnished. Books on military strategy, a kettle that hadn't boiled in weeks, and a single photo frame face down on the side table. The buzzing hum of the heater did little to break the tension curling in her spine. Then her phone chimed. It wasn't a call, just a tag. She clicked and the screen blinked to life with a photo. Her sister, Sophie Mitchell, in a white dress under a cascade of fairy lights. The caption, "She said yes." Claire stared at it, unmoving, until another ping came in. This time, a message from Tasha. "Have you seen the photo?" Claire didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence on the line said enough. There had been no text, no call, no email. Just a smiling Sophie, a sparkling ring, and a crowd of familiar faces, none of whom had bothered to include the one person who had once risked her life to keep theirs safe. A knock at the door broke the moment. An envelope slid through the mail slot. No address, no stamp, just embossed letters. The Mitchell family. Inside was a wedding invitation, delicate and perfumed. No greeting, no name. Claire flipped it over, and at the bottom, in faint silver ink, a note. "Please wear neutral colors." She knew that voice. It wasn't Sophie's. It was Margaret, her mother. The message was precise, clinical, just like every order she'd ever given. As if Claire were still a cadet to be corrected, not a former major general who had once stood at the Pentagon's innermost circle. Claire's lips curled into something bitter. "Not even the courtesy of my name," she muttered. She reached for the invitation, holding it by the edge like it might burn. For a moment, her fingers tightened, ready to tear it down the middle. But she stopped. Instead, she folded it once precisely and tucked it into the inner pocket of her weathered army jacket. She hadn't worn it in years, but somehow it still fit. Her hand lingered on the fabric. Before she could process the weight of that decision, her wristband vibrated. A soft pulse against her skin. The screen lit up with a single encrypted message. "If you care about Sophie, come. Someone else has already arrived." Claire stared. The words weren't from her family. This was something else, something deeper. The air changed. The cold wasn't just emotional now. It was tactical. She straightened, her jaw set. Tasha's voice echoed in her mind from a call long ago. "You were born for war, but you don't know how to stop fighting." Claire wasn't sure if she was going to a wedding or stepping into a battlefield. But either way, she was going. Not for them. For her. The gates of Elm's estate opened with a reluctant groan, as if the centuries-old iron itself knew she didn't belong. Clare Mitchell stepped onto the gravel path, her boots crunching with every step toward the grand archway bathed in filtered morning light. She wore a tailored gray suit, perfectly neutral, impeccably pressed. But as she approached the check-in table, the woman seated behind it hesitated. "Name, please?" "Clare Mitchell." The woman tapped quickly on her tablet, then frowned, tapped again. "I'm sorry. There must be a mistake. I don't see a Claire listed." Claire's jaw tightened. "Try again." After a second failed search, the receptionist looked up, nervous. "You're not on the seating chart, but if you wait a moment, I can find someone to—" "It's fine." Claire's voice was ice. She stepped back before the pity in the woman's eyes could land. Inside the estate, sunlight poured in through stained glass windows, painting false warmth on cold marble floors. Waiters floated by with champagne, the kind of carefully choreographed movement only reserved for galas and weddings too expensive to feel real. Claire was escorted, not to the family section, but to the overflow chairs lining the far edge of the hall, behind a pillar. Her name wasn't on the table plan, not on the family list, not even on the guest registry. From a distance, she saw Margaret and Douglas Mitchell, her parents, greeting guests. Their faces lit up in smiles that disappeared the moment they caught sight of her. They walked over, but the greeting was brief. Empty. Margaret said, "You look, well, I see you got the note about the dress code." Douglas added nothing, just a nod, as if acknowledging the presence of a stranger at a museum exhibit. Then Sophie appeared, radiant in white, her veil catching the light like it belonged on a magazine cover. She walked past Claire without stopping, eyes briefly flickering with something that might have been guilt or fear, but she said nothing. The hall was meticulously decorated, cascading roses, hand-calligraphed signage, photo frames hanging from vines. Claire walked among them slowly. Engagement photos, childhood memories, Sophie's first piano recital, Douglas's retirement party, but not a single image of Claire. Not even from before she joined the military. Not even one blurry photo from when they were kids, faces smeared with cake and innocence. She had been erased, cleanly, deliberately. She inhaled sharply, turning away, and then froze. There, across the room, laughing among the VIP guests in a navy suit with a champagne flute in hand, was Marcus Grayson. Marcus, with his practiced smile and eyes that once knew everything about her. The man who had stood beside her on Black Ops missions. The man who had betrayed her for a promotion, selling intel that cost lives and nearly her own. Claire's heartbeat slowed to a tactical rhythm. Her fingers curled around the clutch in her hand as if it were a weapon. She didn't move toward him. Not yet. Just then, a waiter brushed past, carrying a tray of cocktails. Claire's eyes narrowed. His posture was too rigid. Shoes military shined, and his name tag read Peter. But the company catering the event was listed in the packet she'd reviewed, and they didn't use name tags. She turned slightly, followed him with her eyes. He took a sharp turn toward the service hallway instead of the kitchen. Something was off. The lighting, too. It was almost too controlled. The audio feed from the ceremony room hummed at a near-invisible frequency. Claire adjusted her wristband. It was still silent, but now she was listening in a different way. The wedding may have erased her, but someone else had inserted themselves. Someone who shouldn't be here. And she wasn't just a forgotten guest anymore. She was on alert. Hoy ChatGPT. The bridal dressing room shimmered in candlelight, thick with the scent of peonies, lavender, and expensive perfume. Silk robes hung neatly on a rack beside a tray of untouched macarons. Clare Mitchell slipped in without sound, her steps calculated, her breath low and steady. The guests were dancing, the music loud, but here, silence reigned, almost too perfectly. She adjusted the wristband on her arm, watching as the blinking dot pulsed stronger with every step closer to the wedding gown draped over a mannequin in the corner. The signal wasn't ambient. It was focused, embedded. She scanned the hemline, the seams, then, almost surgically, ran a tiny reader over the inner bodice. It beeped. Once. Then again. The source was inside the dress. Behind her, the door burst open. Sophie stood frozen, already in makeup but not yet changed. Her eyes darted to the reader in Claire's hand. "What the hell are you doing?" Claire didn't answer immediately. She reached into the lining of the dress and, with the ease of someone who had dismantled bombs in war zones, extracted a bead-sized device barely larger than a grain of rice. Sophie gasped. "You're out of your mind. That's my wedding dress." Claire turned slowly. "And someone went to great lengths to make it your transmitter." "You don't belong here," Sophie snapped. "You don't even know what's going on in my life." "No," Claire replied calmly, "but I know what this is." She held the device up to the candlelight. "This is military-grade signal tech. It doesn't belong in a dress. It belongs in war zones." Sophie stared, stunned. Then her voice dropped. "Matt said the dress was a gift, from one of his corporate sponsors." Claire's eyes sharpened. "What sponsor?" "I don't know. He just said some defense company owed him a favor." Claire felt a chill rise behind her ribs. Her voice was low, measured. This device is transmitting encrypted data on a closed frequency, the exact pattern used in Operation Black Horizon. Sophie blinked. That mission? The one you were wiped off the books for, framed, discharged. Yes. Claire stepped forward. This isn't just surveillance. Someone's trying to exfiltrate mission data through your wedding. The air hung heavy. Sophie's face softened, the edges of her polished world crumbling. For the first time, she didn't see her sister as a disgrace. She saw a soldier, battle-worn, yes, but still standing. Then the door clicked again. Ethan Price slipped in, eyes scanning the corners before meeting Claire's. He was dressed like a guest, but Claire recognized the tension in his shoulders. He handed her a small chip and a decoding device. You're right. It's Black Horizon intel, but that's not all. What else? Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. Grayson is here, and he's not just here to watch the wedding. Claire pocketed the chip. Her spine straightened. No uniform, no orders. But once again, she was the only one standing between the enemy and the oblivious. Sophie, pale now, gripped the edge of the vanity. What does he want? Claire turned toward the door, her voice hardening. To finish what he started. The chandeliers above the wedding hall glistened like stars trapped in crystal. Candlelight danced along the polished marble, and the orchestra played something elegant, almost too elegant. Notes so smooth they felt manufactured. Claire stood in the shadows near the side entrance, eyes sharp beneath the delicate veil of civility. Around her, the celebration pressed on. Glasses clinked, laughter bloomed, and cameras flashed across champagne-stained smiles. But something beneath the polish trembled. From her wristband, a faint green light blinked once. Nova was in position. The AV system had been accessed remotely, just as planned. At the front of the hall, Marcus Grayson stood beside Sophie and Matt, raising a crystal flute. His voice boomed across the speakers, rehearsed, polished. Today, we honor not just the union of two souls, but the legacy of the Mitchell family, a name that stands for integrity, courage, and patriotic sacrifice. A few polite claps echoed. Margaret Mitchell dabbed her eyes. Douglas smiled like a CEO posing for a legacy portrait. Then came the shift. From the far end of the room, a slow, deliberate sound of heels against marble. Claire stepped forward. Expression unreadable, posture exact. Light caught the hem of her gray jacket, the same one she'd worn into conflict zones. The orchestra hesitated. Conversations faltered. Then Ethan stood. He turned to face the crowd, squared his shoulders, and raised his hand in a formal, sharp salute. Major General Clare Mitchell, ma'am. Silence detonated in the room. Glasses paused midair. Mouths opened, but no sound came. Margaret's face drained of color. Sophie's lips parted, stunned. Douglas looked like he'd been slapped with a dossier. Claire said nothing. She only nodded once, taking position near the front of the room as the projector's screen flickered to life. The slideshow of childhood photos and wedding quotes glitched, then vanished. In its place, a tactical military map, labeled Black Horizon. Gasps rippled through the room. Grayson took a step forward, his smile faltering. Over the speakers, Claire's voice rang out, controlled and razor-sharp. This is what they don't want you to see. The screen switched to a classified video feed, grainy but damning. Soldiers under fire, a command order stamped with Grayson's signature, mission coordinates altered. Her name, Clare Mitchell, scrubbed from the roster. The next slide showed recovered logs, encrypted messages ordering her team into a trap. Orders signed by Grayson. Whispers surged like a rising tide. A few guests moved toward the exits. The underground media reps in the back? Already filming. Claire's voice still echoing. The truth was buried. I was buried. But the record keeps the dead honest. Grayson's composure cracked. He stepped forward, pulling a red-sealed envelope from his coat pocket and raising it high. She is illegally accessing classified intelligence, he snapped. This is a direct violation of national security. Arrest her, oh. But no one moved. Not yet. The wedding hall, once a shrine to Sophie's perfect day, had become a courtroom. And the last guest to arrive wasn't there to celebrate. She was there to testify. The corridor outside the grand hall was dim, lit only by flickering sconces and the amber glow spilling through stained glass panels. The wedding music had faded into background static, distant and irrelevant. Clare moved with purpose through the hallway, her military bearing cutting through the chaos. Her wristband pulsed again, Nova's signal steady, decoding in real time. She had barely turned the corner toward the backstage tech room when two men in dark suits intercepted her. "Miss Mitchell," one said, hand reaching toward his lapel. "We need you to come with us." "Stand down," came Ethan's voice, sharp and unwavering. He appeared at her side, badge briefly flashing. "She's under my protection, pending investigation." The men paused, hesitating. Behind them, a deeper voice boomed. "This is a coordinated smear job." Senator Douglas Reeves stepped forward, flanked by a pair of high-ranking aides. His silver hair gleamed under the hallway lights, and his eyes, cold and unreadable, landed on Clare. "You're dragging innocent families through the mud for personal vengeance," he continued, "and I will not allow this farce to ruin Marcus's career." Claire's expression didn't change. "This isn't a smear. This is exposure." She held up a tiny drive, pressed a command on her wristband. Nova responded instantly. The screen on the backstage panel flared to life, showing a time-stamped audio recording. Grayson's voice, unmistakable, played over the speakers. "Let her take the fall. We can clean it up later. She's expendable." A pause. Then static. Then silence. Senator Reeves' jaw clenched. Before anyone could speak, footsteps echoed behind Clare. Margaret Mitchell. Her face pale, her pearls trembling against her collarbone. "Clare," she whispered, reaching out. "You've made your point. Please, don't ruin what's left of this family." Clare didn't flinch. "You mean your version of this family?" Margaret stepped closer. "Do you want to destroy everything? In front of the press? Sophie's future?" Clare met her mother's gaze, cold, unwavering. "This family destroyed me years ago, and none of you flinched." A beat passed. Then Nova beeped again. The projector switched. A live data map illuminated the hallway walls, connecting the wedding's sound system to a relay server. Highlighted in red, the funding source. Matt's company. The signal was real. The leak was active. The silence was suffocating. Margaret's hand dropped. Clare stepped forward, her voice quieter now, but sharper than ever. "If you stay silent, your granddaughter will grow up thinking silence is noble. Just like you did." Margaret stood frozen, the words cutting deeper than any intel could. Then, slowly, she stepped back. Said nothing. Didn't protest. The shell cracked. And Marcus Grayson, watching from the edge of the hallway, finally looked afraid. The rotunda stood quiet beneath the dome of etched glass, where shafts of morning light cut through the stillness like divine arrows. Unlike the glitter and chaos of the wedding days before, this place was sacred. Stone floors, metal plaques, silence laced with respect. Clare Mitchell stood at its center, dressed in formal service blues for the first time in 4 years. Not because she needed to prove anything, but because this moment didn't belong to ghosts anymore. The viral video from the wedding had burned through every secure channel within 24 hours. Operation Black Horizon was reopened. Grayson had been summoned before the Oversight Committee. And for the first time, someone had said Clare's name, publicly, officially, without shame. She adjusted her collar as a few former agents entered. Quiet nods exchanged between those who had once bled together, but never got to grieve out loud. Ethan stood nearby, hands behind his back. Nova's voice buzzed lightly in her ear. "Recording clean. Private stream secure." Then, from the edge of the room, Sophie approached. She wore no makeup today, no veil. Just a simple blouse and slacks, hair pulled back. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't offer excuses. Instead, she stood beside her sister and whispered, "Thank you for coming and for staying." Claire gave a small nod. That was enough. The ceremony was brief. A few words from a quiet officer, acknowledgments of covert operations long buried. Then Claire was invited to say something. She stepped up to the microphone, glanced at the wall of names behind her, most of them still classified, most of them never spoken aloud. "I don't need a name on the record," she said, voice even. "I just need the truth to exist. Some of us didn't make it. Some of us were erased. But truth remembers, even when institutions forget." She stepped back. Applause wasn't expected, but it came, muted, respectful, sincere. Then one officer stepped forward. From a box, he produced an old velvet case, worn at the corners, the metal inside still gleaming. The original. Claire opened it slowly. The metal they once told her she didn't deserve. Her hand didn't tremble as she pinned it above her heart. No one saluted. No anthem played. But the stillness in the room was louder than any ceremony. As people filtered out, a small girl with a paper flower crept forward. She looked up at Claire, wide-eyed. "My daddy said you were a hero. I want to be a soldier like you." Claire crouched, accepting the crinkled paper blossom. "Then be brave," she said, "but never forget who you are. Before the uniform." The child nodded, solemn. Claire stood again, now facing the bronze wall. At its base, freshly engraved among the names history almost forgot, shone Clare Mitchell, Vanguard Division, Black Horizon, no fanfare, no redemption speech, just presence and truth, finally seen. For years, Clare Mitchell walked in silence, branded a ghost in her own family, a casualty of politics more brutal than any battlefield. What began as a quiet return to attend a sister's wedding ended in a firestorm of revelations, betrayal, and long-buried truths clawing their way into daylight. And yet, in the end, she didn't raise her voice to demand justice. She let the evidence speak. She let the silence crack. And that was enough. The woman once erased from photos became the face of a mission that was never supposed to exist. The same family that once viewed her as an inconvenience was forced to confront a truth deeper than bloodlines. That honor can be stripped, manipulated, buried, but it cannot be destroyed. And the man who orchestrated her downfall, who toasted false virtue beneath chandeliers, was finally brought to his knees, not by revenge, but by consequence. Sometimes the strongest statement is not vengeance, it's presence. It's standing in the same room that once cast you out and refusing to bow. Claire didn't return to be welcomed. She returned so the truth could no longer be ignored. Let the story remind us, justice isn't a gift handed down. It's a fight carved out of silence, breath by breath. And when injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. No matter how tightly someone grips the curtain of lies, truth finds a way to slip through the seams. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but once it's heard, it never leaves the room. So if you've ever been made to feel invisible, if someone erased your name, your story, your voice, know this. Sometimes reclaiming your place doesn't begin with shouting. It begins with showing up. Perhaps standing up today means you'll never again have to bow to injustice tomorrow. If this story moved you, hit like, share with someone who needs courage today, and subscribe for more powerful journeys like Claire's. Comment 1 below if you've ever had to fight silently for what's right, and 1